Hi, this is the Kubernetes SIG cluster lifecycle API office hours of, what is today? It is Wednesday, April 20th, 2022, which is a date that definitely exists. And yes, apparently I have lots of sirens here, so you know, that's exciting. We are abiding by the CNCF Code of Conduct. We'd like participants to use the raise hands feature, and I will share my screen with the agenda so that it will be in the meeting. Sharing that now. And with the clicking. All right, so we're going to take a look. I think we start with open proposals. Oh, wait, first we welcome new attendees. Do we have any new attendees to welcome today? If so, I see one flaw with me screen sharing is I'm not necessarily sure I can see if you raise your hand or not. So if you want to, please go ahead and just unmute and let us know if you are a new attendee. Lots of excitement down on the street. They're having a fire truck convention. Okay, so let's go to open proposal readouts. Do we want to start with, looks like the spot instances proposal needs review? Or do we have one we want to start with? I guess speak up. I'm not positive if I'm supposed to pick which one we go through, or if somebody wants to speak up and say, I'd like to review this one, or should I just go through them all? I see a hand. Hey, Matt.
Hey, there's so many of them. We've usually just been waiting for people to raise their hands, I guess. So I just did.
Awesome.
So as I've said for the last few weeks, Machine Pool Machines continues to move forward. We've gotten really good feedback. I think I've addressed most of it. But I feel like we're still a little bit slow motion. And as Fabrizio suggested last week, maybe it would be worth having a short meeting and working over the remaining feedback and seeing if we're really at lazy consensus time yet, or if there's more to do. Fabrizio.
I think that we need a meeting. At least there is something up here. I did not have time to figure it out in detail. So for me, a meeting will be helpful. And this week we had a meeting for the IPAM proposal, and it really helped to move things forward. So if we can find a slot whenever you are comfortable, I will do my best to join.
Great.
All right. Which other ones do people want to chat about?
I can give a brief update on the IPAM proposal. So we had, I saw that Jakob added a point in agenda. I don't know if Jakob is here as well.
Okay.
Seems not. So
I am.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Do you want to give a quick update on the discussion that we had?
Yeah, sure. So I think we've mostly clarified a few things. There's also a quick summary by Fabrizio in Slack about what we've discussed. So there's like one big open topic was moving network configuration to machine level, which was touched in the feedback for the proposal, which in my opinion is such a big topic that it probably requires a separate proposal entirely. We've discussed about the current IPAM proposal in case we actually want to move configuration to machine level, and in our opinion, it doesn't really interfere. So you could just still move configuration over and still be able to use that IPAM integration. And then a second topic that was discussed a little bit, at least, was allocating IP blocks or IP pools automatically, which is probably mostly interesting with cluster class. And that's something I think that can be done in another iteration. I've added one point in the proposal regarding that. Yeah, I don't think there's any other big topics open. Maybe some details on the types, which can maybe also be clarified during implementation, and then I will just update the proposal with the proper types once they are finalized.
Okay, we have a few hands. I had a quick question in the agenda. It says we have lazy consensus until ? So if we had any more specificity about dates or desired dates or amount of time, maybe that question mark could be filled in. And then I believe Jack had his hand up first.
Yeah, I'll be really quick. I just wanted to mention that I added my name and Jonathan Tong's name to the Cluster API add-on orchestration proposal list. I don't want to suggest that help wanted is still not the case. If you want to get involved in that, please ping Fabrizio or myself or Jonathan. And Jonathan has made really good progress already on a prototype, so expect a demo in the next few weeks. That's it.
Okay. Awesome. And Yassine, you raised your hand as well.
Yeah, it is mainly a follow-up on the IPAM proposal. So yeah, I think in general, the proposal is on a stage that is where it's solving like real problems for the use cases that it lists. And from the meeting, what we saw is that it's not like gonna corner us or block us in case we want, to start modeling in like a common API on how we model like network interfaces for machines. So yeah, in general, like +1 for this proposal.
Okay, great. And I know Jack has more commentary as well. Jack, do you want to talk more about this topic, or do we have an additional proposal topic to move to?
Sorry, my attention strayed a little bit. I forgot to lower my hand if that was.
Oh, okay, no worries.
Yep.
And then Christian, you have one as well.
Yeah, I have one about another proposal.
Okay.
If
Yeah,
this
we
one-
can go to that if we're done discussing this one. Do we have anything else on the lazy consensus for this IPAM proposal
Yeah,
that we're doing
just
until?
the date. I wasn't
Yeah.
sure how long that should take. The idea was
What do we
to do it in
think?
an hour.
I propose end of this next week because I really would like to give chance to people in provider to take a last look, because most of the work is on the provider side.
All right. Fabulous. Are we done with are we wrapped on this topic of lazy consensus on the IPAM proposal?
I would say so, yes.
Fantastic. Okay, Christian, you have something else.
Yeah, maybe I've got it also on the list in the agenda later on. So maybe we just move
okay.
on with the agenda then.
Awesome. Is there anything else we need to talk about open proposal readout wise before we move down the agenda? Okay. Looks like we've got Yuvraj and Fabrizio want to talk about default version of Cert Manager.
I will told you Yuvraj cannot join today, so we are still using in Cluster API a version of Cert Manager that is now out of support. We discovered just this recently. We are using 1.5.3, which is now out of support. So I'm proposing, we have already a PR out to bump Cert Manager to 1.7.2, which is the latest in the 7th release. I think that we should bring this one and backport, and then eventually we can pick up the 1.0 version of Cert Manager that has been released last week. But I'm kind of hesitant to jump on 1.8.0 and backport directly. So I prefer to backport something which is already battle tested by the community. Is there any objection to this plan of action that is bumped to 172 now, backport to 1.0 and 1.1 and probably 1.0 branch, and then plan for 1.8.0?
When you say cherry picking to previous releases, are we sure that 172 will work for any previous releases we're bringing it back to? Like, what does the skew or matrix look like?
So cluster API does not have a EV, let me say, dependencies on cert manager. We just use to get a certificate for the controller. So it is a pretty common use case. We have automation. So as soon as we backport, we give 1 or 2 days to see if our test works, and I don't expect problems. But yeah, I'm asking to the community if people see a problem around this.
Timmy, do you have a thought on
sure.
this topic?
Yeah, hey Fabrizio, just one question here about the 1.7 version. I know we're like in the 1.5 space today. What's the support timeline for the 1.7 version? Like how long do we have to potentially bring in 1.7 and then ultimately think about moving to 1.8 before we lose supportability of that one as well?
I have to check. Let me say the fact that 1.3 is out of support is something that someone reported. I have to check if there is a table or ask to the cert manager community. But yeah, that's a good question. I will report it. Oh, Christian is passing information. So they are pretty aggressive in version. 1.7 end of line is June, and 1.8 is August.
Wow.
Wow.
I guess they expect us to get moving. So yeah, it sounds like any investment of time of getting updated, we're gonna want to make sure we can keep going. Cecile, do you have a thought on this topic?
There are some comments in the issue, in the cluster API issue, about how 1.7 made some significant changes, which looks like it requires Kubernetes 1.18 because it's using server-side apply, and it's also dropping some APIs. There's some deprecated API versions, which might require some extra upgrade steps. So I'm just wondering if we really want to be cherry picking something that potentially would, be breaking for existing clusters, especially if this is like a very aggressive deprecation. Like until when do we keep, backporting? Are we going to do the same thing again in June, or what's our maintainability plan?
Christian, do you have a thought on that?
Yeah, they also note the supported versions at their page, so maybe that's one thing to look at if you want to cherry pick or not.
Yeah. And Fabrizio?
Yeah, so first of all, I don't think that 1.18 is a problem for the 1.1 series, because 1.18 is the minor version that we support in CAPI. So this should not be a problem. Also, the API that they are dropping should not be a problem because we already migrate everything to the new version. I want also to, there is always an escape patch because a user can override. This is for the default version that CAPI installs. User can override and use older, newer version. What worries me a little bit, and I think that we have to discuss with the cert manager community, is that they have a really aggressive end of life for each release. It is basically 3 months for each release. And this put us on a kind of big pressure. So we have to figure it out.
Yeah, at the same time, though, considering we just discussed 1.18, I'm just sitting here thinking Kubernetes itself moves pretty quickly too. So maybe we should think about how far back we want to support things in general if the upstream projects, or upstream, but like if the projects that we're consuming don't have patches and support for something anymore, at some point we might have to just say, look, you shouldn't be using version X. Do we have anything else we should discuss about this change? Do we think our action is to investigate exactly which versions we can cherry pick what, or what are we thinking? I see Dane and Fabrizio. Are they both on this topic?
Yes,
Yeah.
just related to the last comment about the moving too fast.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if the problem is the moving too fast in versions so much as the rapid breaking changes or rapid deprecate. The Kubernetes has a deprecation schedule, so I wonder if maybe some of the other 6 projects aren't following the schedule or the recommendations there. That might be something to follow up with them to help with the pain around getting these upgrades in.
Sure, yeah. Right, and Fabrizio.
I think that, so I'm not sure where the pain is. So in Cluster API, we are kind of requested by our user to support a wide range of Kubernetes release. And Cluster API somehow is absorbing part of the speed of the ecosystem, because at the end our user needs this decompression support to follow up with production and stuff like that. So I think that is important for CAPI not to restrict too much the range of release that we support. So our policies basically say that we do this at best effort. We cannot basically solve problem of the other project. What concerns me is that now we are deploying a cert manager release that is not supported anymore. And this is something that I would like to get out as soon as possible.
Absolutely. Cecile, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think part of the problem is that we're not clear on our own support policy and like release branches that we support, because we documented something, but it seems like in practice we're not following that. Because we did document that we were going to support only the last minor release of each API version. And here we're talking about backporting to 1.0, which is, you know, supposed to be end of life by now. So I think if we do like, you know, stick to saying like are like currently supported, and maybe we need to redefine what is currently supported because it doesn't match what users need. But if we do stick to like only supporting the release branches that are like currently supported by Cluster API, then things like that, like, you know, keeping the Kubernetes version support and the cert manager version support and all of that fresh, I think would be a little easier to do if we're like targeting only like the release branches that we're actively maintaining and not trying to like keep everything that was ever, you know, released to users up to date, because that just gets like very painful, I think, to maintain over time.
I have to big time +1 to that, Cecile. I think that the desire to keep everything forever good for everyone runs right up against the actual reality of the infinite matrix of complexity. So as we're seeing here. So yeah, I think what we're hearing is our short-term solution to this specific problem is, yes, get this a little bit more up to date. but the longer term is we need to figure out and redefine what we're actually going to keep patching. Does that summarize?
This sounds right to me. So if I got it right, okay to bump to 172, okay to backport to 1.1.
And if we have tests that'll tell us if that'll break anything, I suppose.
Yeah, we have tests. So okay, and then we have to figure it out how to keep up with certain manager release continuously changing.
Yeah, and what Cecile said about the broader what's going on with how much we're going to support forever. Let's make sure we're actually doing what we said we're going to do and not trying to do more, because then people expect it and then maybe we'll fall down and not be able to produce what they end up expecting that we never intended to cover. Does that sound like it covers it?
No, that sounds good. I brought up 1.0 because I don't. We kind of agreed to have a extra release patch. I don't remember if we already did or not, but I can check. There is not, so that's fine for me.
Okay. Okay. Do we have anything else on this topic? All right. Thank you. Very important. Looks like Dane, we've got a externally managed replica count to talk about.
Yes, thank you, Bridget. So I got pretty busy and I lost the ability to keep working on this for a couple months there. So I'm trying to get back into it a little bit. My time's still under a lot of pressure, but I've seen there's several comments on the issue and several people are interested. Fabrizio placed some very good thoughts in there about some interactions with, I think it was cluster class, or it was one of the other controllers. Apologize if I'm misstating. So it sounded like maybe things were, consensus was maybe drifting towards an annotation instead of a spec field and instead of putting this into the provider. And I just kind of wanted to bubble that up to this group and see if we can get some consensus on exactly where to configure this behavior. And if we decide lazy consensus is the way, that's great too. And then we could maybe set a date for lazy consensus on that.
It looks like everyone's absorbing and thinking about, annotation. So are we looking for a consensus on just go with annotation and no change to CAPI, or are we looking for consensus on the adding this field?
So the configuration, the field needs to exist somewhere. It wasn't clear to me the benefits of annotation versus spec field. They feel pretty much, they feel very similar to me, except spec is a little bit more, has a stronger contract around it. But so, if starting in an annotation makes sense, maybe it graduates to a spec field later. I don't know, but I think it makes sense as a spec field, but I'm completely okay putting it in an annotation instead. It's just a matter of, I don't know if there's a right or wrong answer here. There's just a lot of preferences. So it's kind of a difficult one to drive consensus towards. There's a lot of differing opinions.
Yeah. Fabrizio, you have a thought?
I have a general consideration. I think that whenever we are proposing an API change, which is adding a field or something like that, unfortunately, opening APR is not the best way to have discussion. So for the specific topic, I have to look at the PR and make up my mind again. I don't remember why we got to the conclusion, annotation versus field, what are the pros and cons. But what I'm kind of advocating for is that we should, whenever there are things that require discussion, probably, or we do this in an issue, or even better in a document, in a Google Doc, where we discuss pro and cons. This will help people to understand what problem we are solving, understand what option we have, and eventually configure, because it is happening. This is not only this is not the first case that we have. We had recently another case for volume drain, timeout, etc., and we had a lot of back and forth, and this makes kind of tricky to trace. So I'm taking the occasion to ask folks, when we need a change of the API, we have to make sure that we address all the concern in the proper way.
Thank you, Fabrizio. And Cecile put in the chat, and I think maybe we should get this on the recording, about maybe that this is a question that has come up around this kind of convention. Cecile, do you want to elaborate on that?
Yeah, I just feel like the annotation versus field question is just very common. Like we've had it many, many times. And so I feel like maybe instead of like having the entire discussion each time it comes up, we could have some sort of convention that we agree on as a project. Like this is when it's appropriate to use an annotation and versus using a field. So we can point to it, and that might be a bit easier. So we're aligned on that.
Fabrizio, your thoughts?
It was far before, sorry.
Okay. Dane.
Yeah, totally agree on the proposal process for most things. I think just a clarification, I guess, this is an experimental resource. So my understanding was this was kind of still in a, we were still kind of trying to define the interface around that. So would you be proposing that we would use that process for the experimental ones as well?
I think that, so if I follow this case, there is a lot of back and forth, and we're trying to figure it out, how to solve a use case. The problem is that if the discussion goes so long, what I'm wondering is is this the best way to engage the community? Maybe just writing a doc, we are planning to do this change. Those are the 3 options that we evaluated. This doc can be linked to an issue or whatever, could be a better way to get an agreement before writing code and getting lost into detail or stuff like that. So I don't think that we always need a full-fledged proposal. In some cases, it will be enough something more than an issue to figure it out option. Some company called this one-pager or something similar. It is just that it is kind of hard to figure it out all this back and forth at this stage.
So it sounds like what you're describing is kind of like a cap.
I'm asking to the community because it is happening that we propose a solution, then we discover that behind this idea there is a lot of implication. And so I'm wondering if we can do better and get to an agreement before writing code, and then having PR stuck for months, and which is not nice for everyone. So yeah, maybe I understand a cap can be overwhelming, but there could be some middle ground between writing a full-fledged cap and writing directly code.
Right, right, absolutely. Dane, your thoughts?
Sorry, I think I lost my train of thought there, but yeah, I can move this into, actually, I don't, now I recall. So this is related actually to the next bullet item. There is some of this is touched on in the managed Kubernetes and CAPI. So they're interconnected, I guess is what I'm saying, because the core crux of why this became an issue in the first place was trying to delegate things to cloud providers, which is related to the managed stuff. So maybe we can incorporate some of what Fabrizio is asking for into that document.
Fabulous. Well, that is a nice segue to, it looks like Winnie and Richard want to talk about managed Kubernetes and CAPI.
Yeah, sure, I can cover this. So yeah, we've added a new draft proposal that is a result of a meeting we had at the beginning of, I think it was March now, where we discussed how to represent managed Kubernetes services in CAPI. And that was a result of an issue in Kappa and the way that we've implemented EKS and cluster class is causing a problem. So in this proposal, we sort of taken the approach of using GCP as an example, because GKE isn't currently implemented in the GCP provider, and we've mainly focused on the distinction between the infrastructure and the control plane, and given 4 options, 4 potential options as a way to implement this with pros and cons, and a recommendation towards the end. So we are just adding a new section on how to represent managed node groups if the cloud service offers that. So, you know, GCP node pools or EKS node groups are good examples of that. And really, I guess the outcome of this proposal would be just, I guess, provider implementation documentation updates, and a way that for new providers, if you are implementing a managed Kubernetes service in Kappa, then these are the recommendations. Just so happens that Kappa and CapZ have landed on 2 slightly different solutions to the problem, which are both documented in here as well. So great to get feedback on this.
Great, awesome, thanks. So if folks want to follow the link, and Winnie, you have thoughts.
Oh yeah, no, I just want to mention that so this proposal is a little bit different, that there are already existing implementations. So as you can see in the goals section, we actually want to provide guidance for future implementations. And we want to find a solution that works with cluster class, but we are not requiring existing implementation to converge onto a solution if it works with the cluster class and they're happy with it.
Okay, was there a specific section that you wanted me to highlight? I'm not sure which page we're
Yeah, it goes in goals section.
Okay. I don't know which section that is, since this is the first time I've opened this document, sorry.
Yeah, a little bit of, yeah, right there, goals and non-goals.
Gotcha. All right, do we have thoughts, commentary, questions? It looks like a bunch of people have put some comments on this already. Is the next step more people to read this and comment on it, or is there something else that we should be doing next?
Yeah, that's probably the best next step, and especially good to get feedback from any providers that have a managed Kubernetes service.
All right, I know I saw some comments in there from such providers already, but let's get more of those. And then is our next step to discuss it further, or we're just not positive?
Yeah, I think probably after some more feedback, yeah, we could just discuss it further.
All right. Feel free to add it to the agenda for next time as well. Then we can hopefully get everyone to have read it by then. Anything else on this topic? Okay, great. Thank you so much. This is very exciting. All right, Christian, lazy consensus on cluster API state metrics. There's a proposal.
Yeah, as already mentioned last week, there's the pull request for the cluster API state metrics proposal. There are also already, it looks good to me, from Fabrizio and Alberto. Yeah, as already mentioned the last time, it will be a component in the experimental directory. It will not harm the core copy controllers and be an opt-in component. So yeah, I was asking if there's still some time required for some people who want to read it out, or if we could agree on some lazy consensus date, or if there are any more questions.
What's our standard? What do we think would be a reasonable date for us to have lazy consensus on this?
That's a good question to me.
There is no standard. We usually give a week, so or something similar. So I think that a week is fine. In this case, it is a experimental component. It is isolated from the rest, so I don't see problem in moving even faster.
Okay, and Cecile, you have thoughts?
Yeah, just I noticed there are like 5 reviewers listed in the proposal, but so it would be good to, you know, maybe get those reviewers that haven't signed off on it to, you know, say if they have any objections for moving forward. And if not, then yeah, I think a week is usually good.
Yeah, then I will take this one and reach out to them. Thanks.
Great.
That's a good idea.
Awesome, thank you. Okay, next topic. Richard, you want to talk about a meeting at KubeCon?
Yeah, so this was just following up on I think there was a thread on Slack, and I think it was mentioned a couple of weeks ago in the office hours, but I wasn't aware of any firm arrangements for an informal meetup at KubeCon EU in May. So I was wondering, have I missed it, or do we need to arrange a doodle to try and arrange a time for everyone that suits everyone to meet up, whether that's on the Contributor Summit day on Monday the 16th or later in the week? Because it'd be great to meet up.
The Contributor Summit day is being run as an unconference, right? So if it's an unconference style, I guess you could just go there and propose the cluster API topic for the unconference, and then people could join for that. That's one fairly lightweight way to have people participate if they're going to the Contributor Summit.
Yeah, it's not bad. And there was talk about meeting up for breakfast and things like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, it'd be just good to arrange something. So yeah, happy to send a doodle or something around if no one else has arranged it.
I mean, that sounds great. If you want to put a doodle in Slack, then people could at least, you know, indicate when they can or can't do it, and you could pick a good time.
Cool, sounds good.
Awesome. Okay, Yassine, we have the cluster naming consistency.
Yeah, so this one is about like consistency across providers. Today we have like some providers like CapZ restricting dots within the cluster name, where on others like we're allowing dots and any valid Kubernetes name basically. So yeah, wondering if we probably want to restrict or relax CapZ, but I think overall we should align the expectations with our end users across providers. So wonder if anyone has any thoughts about this. At least in CapV, I've seen I've seen past issues due to cloud init and like using dots within the name of the cluster. So considering that it's a breaking change, if it something like this, or if we decide to make it something like this happen, we would have to wait for probably another API version to make that happen. So yeah, like if you have any specific thoughts on this, I'll probably like open an issue against CAPI to consolidate the discussions there.
Okay, we can look for that issue. I don't know if anyone has anything specific they want to point to about, do we have any prior art of how clusters are, should be named, or is that something that we've left slightly ambiguous? Like, is this inconsistency because something is not following documentation, or we just didn't document something?
So this is mainly because nothing was part of the contract and nothing was enforced at the cluster API level. So pretty much every provider is doing, I guess, what works for them.
Okay. But now we're seeing that there is a need to either have consistency or document the discontinuities.
Go ahead, Richard.
Would this extend to things like maximum name? Because I know, we've run into issues with the length of cluster names in Kappa, or is it just around the use of dots and dashes and things like that?
Yeah, this is like the inconsistency arises when you're using providers one next to the other. So like if you're using two providers or more, like you have to start thinking about, oh, is this provider allowing this, or is this provider not allowing it? So while like it works in a like in self-contained fashion, if you start putting a provider next to the other, you start seeing like some of these inconsistencies.
Okay, makes sense. So let's
I'll link the issue on the agenda, and then we can take it from there.
Awesome. Yeah, it turns out cache invalidation and naming things are the hard problems. Who knew?
Yeah.
Okay, let's see. It looks like we are out of discussion topics, and we just have room for a few provider updates if folks want to do a few. We have one in the notes now. Jack, do you want to talk a little bit about CAPC provider updates? Meanwhile, if anyone else is thinking to themselves, oh, I want to add one. Go ahead, Jack.
Yeah, sure. Thanks. Real briefly, we have merged in CAPC a change that sets up our out-of-tree cloud provider tests to use Helm as the delivery mechanism, replacing cluster resource set. So if anybody is interested in that sort of inside baseball, you can hit us up on Slack and we can tell you how we did that. And our documentation has also been updated. So folks who are coming to the out-of-tree cloud provider documentation example will be instructed to use Helm to install that on top of their cluster post-cluster create.
Awesome, great. It's always exciting to hear, and the documentation has already been updated. Yes. Any other providers have anything that they want to talk about before we wrap? Okay, I think we're out of topics. We've got plenty going on here, and we will presumably see everyone in 2 weeks. Thank you, folks.
Thanks, Bridget.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bridget.